today. So at this point, I will now officially welcome everyone to this Wednesday's professional development event at the Teaching and Learning Center. I'm Don Saucer. I'm the Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center. And I'm very excited to have Alice Anderson today telling us about 360-degree cameras. And this is going to be an incredibly kind of immersive, interactive tool for us to use with our students in class. And I'm not going to take out any more time because you didn't come here to listen to me. You came here to listen to her. So I'm going to give the floor to Alice. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited to start talking about some of the types of equipment that we're going to have available for the entire campus to use in the Sunderland Foundation Innovation Lab, which is very nearly within our grasp. So it's very exciting. Probably this summer, we'll start having hands-on workshops. So the things that we talk about here today, if you get excited about one of the cameras and you want to put one in your hand and actually fire it up and do something with it, we're going to have those hands-on experiences available very soon. So that's going to be exciting. And of course, these things will be available for checkout for your students, so everybody can be doing some fun things. So my plan is really to tell you a little bit about my journey on how I learned about 360, some of the gotchas I had along the way that in retrospect, I feel like, oh, how come that was not obvious to me? But it's just prior knowledge gets in your way, And then I'll tell you about a sample assignment that we did, a library assignment using 360 and how that went. And I'll share with you some of the materials we found along the way. And I have a few more things that I would add in later. Let's see, I have a cheat sheet aligned here somewhere. I was going to put this is a page that I have placed on the Teaching and Learning Guide, which is Teaching and Learning with the Libraries. So I'm going to put that into the chat here in a minute. And this just will have, where is the chat? There it is. Some other direct links to the materials that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And then after, I talk a little bit about that, I'd be real interested to hear from all of you what your questions are, if you have any experiences already with 360 or things that you might be doing with it and so forth. So about me and my journey, I am not a professional photographer. Okay. This right here, my phone, this is my camera of choice. I am lucky in that it is a Motorola Z. And so it has on the back here, this little area where I can buy accessories that will clamp onto the back of it. So for example, let's see if you can get that. This is a camera that has a 10x optical zoom. So the phone can only go about 2 times, maybe 3 times before it has to do what's called a digital zoom. It is using software to figure out the zoom ratio, and it always gets less quality. You get more pixelated, look that way, graininess. But with this one, this was like a $150 accessory, and I can get 10 times that on an optical zoom. And so I get a better quality picture when I'm out on vacation or something, and I want to get a really nice picture of that giraffe, or say, whatever. So that was like my first step up on cameras. Then because I just thought, all this immersive technology is coming, virtual reality, augmented reality, and what particular piece could I try to play with first that might not like break my brain? So I found out that this phone has another kind of accessory. This is a 360-degree camera accessory. So when I pop that on the back, then I suddenly have the capability to do 360 photos and video. And I took that on vacation, and I did some videos of, checking out the Garden of the Gods in Colorado and places like that. And it was quite interesting. And then I brought it back into the office, and I started sharing that, showing people in the office what you could do with it and how easy. It was no harder to do that 360 photo or video than to operate the regular camera on here. It was just super easy. And it just goes right into my photo albums. I have one selected here from, and I'm gonna, hopefully this works okay. I have a compact mirror up here that when I bring it down, it should start to show you my desktop, and I can put my phone there and you can see the phone. So this is a 360 photo that it took, and this is before the 360 viewer has been engaged. So you can see, like, this is a room in the College of Business, and you can see like the entire room all the way around back to back, and it's been like flattened out. And so it doesn't look very 360. But when there's a little circle in the middle here, and when I touch that, it engages the 360 viewer. And then I can drag the view around with my finger, and I can look all around and up and down and whatever through there. And that brings me to one of the points that was a gotcha that, I'll just bring this back up. That was when we were first started trying to take these photos and send them to other people. They were seeing the original view where it's all flattened out and it's all cornered, and they couldn't do anything interactive with it and move around the scene to change their view. So yeah, we had real trouble. We're like, what are we doing wrong? Why is this export not working right? What is wrong with this? And this is where prior knowledge comes. We expect that when we hit a JPEG picture on our computer, that the computer knows how to display that. Well, that's not automatically true at this stage for 360 photos. It turns out you need special software and there's a lot of free viewers out there. On the PC, there's a viewer called TurnMe that is available in the Windows store for free, and then you're able to see just fine. If you're doing a video and you load up to YouTube, the YouTube player knows exactly how to do the 360, so that works. That's not a problem. But the photo part was a little more challenging to get it to display. So that you have to install. See, it worked on my phone because I have the 360 camera, and when an app became available, it included a viewer for 360. And so other people that don't have a 360 viewer on their phone would have to go get an app that can handle a 360 view. So that was a bit of a learning curve to try and figure out what is wrong with this process. Is you're going to email stuff to people and they can't view it, but you're going to have to include a little bit of information up front to make that work out. So that was one of the first gotchas. And the other was that these files can be remarkably large. I mean, much larger than a regular photo. So you need to be mindful of that and how you're going to share these out or send them out to people. If you're dealing with students that may have limited bandwidth, and that would be an item to consider. After playing around with my own personal 360 camera, the library just bought me this one, which is the Insta360 One X. It's on a tripod right now, just a little one. But it is very, very small. As you can see, it's very lightweight, has the camera on the front and the back, and a small menu system that operates right here when you turn it on. And when we do a hands-on session, we'll show you exactly how to make that connect to your phone. And there's an app that you use, that you download, and I can show you a bit what that looks like by, again, sharing going down that way. It's too much. There you go. So I realize that's a little bit washed out, but it's about the best camera phone I could get arranged so far. What this is the app, and these little circles are individual photos that I have taken, or if it's a video, it's a video there, and I can show you like this one from February. This was the great room before it was, well, we still had all the scaffolding up. Okay. And it was a very interesting place to take a picture because it's just lines and stuff everywhere. And then it turns out there are filters available on the camera. So I can make that same thing be black and white. So then you have a black and white photo of something. Then they have other filters. This one was particularly interesting to me. This is a linear, you're not going to see this so well. I might put some pictures of that up on the guide then. But this one, it just created lines. It was as if somebody did a line drawing of that same space in same 360 area there. But that provides some really interesting opportunities, artistic wise, or just for even if you need to simplify, get a better idea of what kinds of things you're looking at here. And so that was pretty fun to do. And let's see. So operating it on the phone was good. Operating it on the iPad was better because we could see the film or what we were doing much easier. And that was very fun. I think what I want to do now is share with you one of the project's outcomes that we did. We did a video also, but I think that this one on Google Play is a better one to talk about right now, because this would be something that just about everybody ought to be able to approach if they wanted to. Let me find it here. Nope, not there. Yeah, the example tour. Okay, so maybe what I will do is, if it's all right, I'll just share my screen for a moment so you can all see what I'm pointing at. There. So we did this last year, and we said that this was an interesting thing. So I can click and drag it all around. It's rotating slowly on its own, but this tour creator is, as you can see, going to be going away. And I had already arranged this talk when this notice came up, and I was like, what am I going to do now? But it turns out there are plenty of platforms out there that offer a free version that, they have paid versions as well, but the free version will probably be enough for most uses that you could do something similar to this. And some of the key features are, besides being able to look all around, is that you can put little information blurbs on here about that tell the story of what you're looking at here. And there's different levels of things that you can do. Depends on which platform you use. Some of them will let you put in audio. Some of them will let you put in links to documents and so forth. Kula.co is a very popular one right now. It's rated very well. And we redid this whole example in another Cloud Pano, and it also did pretty well. We have another trial out there with La Pentour, and that's probably somewhere between Cloud Pano and Kula in terms of features that you can use for free. So this could be something you would do. Anyway, you move on to another scene. This is one inside, we have more information, scene things linked in there, and people can look all around and see what they want to look at. So that is linked on the the guide that I shared. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. No, stop sharing. Stop. There we go. Okay, that should be stopped, right? Okay, good. So that's that particular assignment, the task, I had a graduate student and an undergraduate student. I had them work together. Then we went to the reading room, which is currently housed in Bluemont. In the reading room, we have something called the vertical files. It's a filing system, and in these boxes and folders in there are any news stories about something about the buildings that are happening in there, what happened in Anderson. So we selected Anderson Hall and said, okay, what can we find out about the history of this building and what happened here? And just going through the file, reading the history of the building, and then coming back with your notes. And then we wrote on the whiteboard and said, what did we notice? And so we started writing down things that were noticed. And once we had identified a bunch of things that they noticed, we started to come up, we could see themes. And they needed a little bit of help in some cases to see a theme or to clarify their theme, to get it chunked into, oh yes, this is educational access. Okay. Having an impact on the community. Oh, okay, good. And then be able to tell those stories and work with the film. So that gave them the opportunity to learn to do some original research. It gave them skills in learning to do some digital storytelling, and to work with librarian in the area, because in this reading room and all cases of the library, there's librarians that can help you do your research and to figure out what's available to work with, and to determine what is the quality or any biases in your sources of information. So it was a pretty interesting event. And then a similar thing could be carried out in many different classes. You can pick a space that you want to talk about, find resources, talk about that space, and start labeling things that are important. Carol Seven and I did a presentation at FEAT last year, I think, about different ways that you might use the 360 and different kinds of projects. Like, what if it's safety issues? What if you take a picture of a scene and you start labeling things that are unsafe and so forth like that? That would be a very useful kind of activity. And so this is just, using the kinds of tools that allow you to make a tour. You can go further, like make a film. And then there's film rubrics, and I've offered some on the guide that explain how to think about doing an assignment that a student's going to make a film, and getting them clued in on what are you caring about for this assignment. Are you caring about their digital storytelling technique? Are you caring about that they given citations for their sources? They can pick and choose what's relevant and important to your class. Did they correctly identify all the important things that were in a scene that they selected? That can be important too. And clearly I might have to close the door here just a moment, because the dogs are very excited about something. I'll be right back.
So I do want to invite anyone that if you're in the chat, feel free to drop in questions. I'll be happy to take care of them. If she doesn't see them, Tucker, Ashley, or I can bring them to her attention as well.
Yeah, what's happening here? Am I missing things in chat?
Oh no, I was just inviting people, if they had comments or questions, they could drop them in the chat.
Oh,
I
yes.
have made that invitation at the beginning of the session, so I figure I'd do that now.
Yeah, I figure we'll have some people that have questions and want to know more about things soon. One of the things I pretty well covered the difficulties or the challenges of doing the 360, except for one thing, and that is that sometimes it can be quite challenging to not be in the picture. Okay. This is because it's a 360. Wherever you are standing, chances are you are in the picture. So if you have students that don't want to be on camera, and it's not a necessary part of the assignment. And then it's important to note how to find hiding spaces. There you can be out of the scene. So like in the Anderson Hall situation, we found that depending on where we put the camera, where we stood it up, then we'd have to like go a certain distance and then hide behind a bush, or get around the corner if we're inside the building, try to hide inside a door well or something like that to be outside the view. And so we started getting really good at spotting where can we put the camera and still not be in the picture. So there's a distance factor because the phone is the one that you're controlling. You can control a camera directly, like the Insta360 if it's on a tripod. You can just push the button and it will take the picture. On the other hand, if you're running it remotely with the app, then you can get as far away as a Bluetooth or as wireless will take you, which 25, 30 feet. Now in the new edition, there's a newer edition of this that we're looking at that's even better. And I think it can go a little further. So, but like you can't go to the other side of the park or whatever and do it. So if you needed to take a picture from the middle of the field, that's going to be hard to get out of the picture. So that's the nutshell version of what it was like to over a semester to try and figure out how to do something with this or get assignments and see what we could do with it. And to begin planning, we had just created the flyers to have hands-on workshops with this camera, and pandemic. So we have a year of delay built in. The cameras of choice have changed because they've improved. So we'll have probably GoPro Max and Insta360 X2, I think might be the one that's coming. It's a newer version of this one because I really like this one. It has some really great quality photos that it gives. But it's maybe not as rugged as a GoPro Max. So that's the reason we're looking at a couple of different, having like a couple of them to share out. And I know that we currently have a stereoscopic 360 camera in checkout of it. It's called a Views. It doesn't have quite as much pixel density as the Insta360, but what it does have going for it is because it has 8 cameras, 2 on each side of 4 sides, it gets a very detailed more three-dimensional sensation when you put it on a VR headset. So that was, I would say, if you haven't had a chance to use a 360 or a VR headset, you need to do that as your earliest opportunity. It is a huge blast. It really makes you appreciate the distinction between working with something on the screen and working with something in an immersive environment. That I think I shared in the promo stuff a link to like Surrounded by White Lions. And I viewed that for the first time. It was on a headset. I had the headset on. And I was looking over here at the lion walking this way. I'm like, oh, what are the other lions doing? I swiveled around and the other lion at that moment was right there in my face and then gave me a big lick right on my nose. And I was in my chair and the chair was, could rock. I leaned way back. I just couldn't not do that. It was very real in that moment. So very excellent stuff to try out, truly quite different. But I really welcomed anybody to have any questions, or if anybody would like to share an experience that they have also had. I know, like just yesterday, we talked with some people in agricultural ed and communication, and they've been doing some VR stuff there too. It's kind of their research passion. So it was a very interesting conversation. So what has anybody got?
So Alice, I'm gonna chime in with a question. I'm not what you would call an early adopter. Not very tech savvy. Tech scares the hell out of me. And if something doesn't work, and if I turn it off and turn it back on and it's not fixed, that's really all I've got. So for someone like me,
Mm-hmm.
who is terrified someone kind of mentions, the tech stuff,
Mm-hmm.
from absolute novice to mildly proficient, what kind of learning curve are we talking?
Let's see. Well, I had, I think that would depend on whether you have the opportunity of having a hands-on workshop, in which case we're planning that to be about an hour to get you set up on the app and able to take pictures and then transfer them to a site, like Kula or Lampento or something like that. And if you're going to do a YouTube video, then you might have a little bit longer curve, because then you've got to learn about uh, how to upload the video. And if it's for educational purposes, you've got to know about creating a transcript for your video. And hopefully that would kind of be a separate or add-on kind of experience. But if you have someone to guide you, like in a workshop, an hour you'll be doing this thing. And I already took one person who is technophobic. I mean, they do not love technology in any way, but they do like art and things like that. And so they wanted to try, and got them through, showed them all the pieces in an hour. We went outside to a pavilion. This was in the fall before the weather was horrible. And yeah, we only spent about an hour, and she took her first picture like almost by accident. She's like, "Oh, I took the picture." So, and then she held on to it for about a week and tried a few things. So I think then she's interested in trying some more and doing some other things with it. So does that help you get an idea?
It does. It alleviates some of my concerns. There's a couple questions in the chat. Someone is asking what the length of checkout of the equipment would be.
Okay, I think it's 3 days, but I would defer to Dean in the Cat's Paw. They're located in the Cat's Paws right now. They will, I think, in April be moving into the foundation area in the library. So that that's typically what the checkout period is, I believe.
Okay. Someone else is wondering about lighting, and they said that they heard that the lighting can be rough to set up for such video recording. Do you run into any issues with that?
Yeah, you do need to think about lighting a little bit. If just like where you're going to put your camera, and or do you want to be in the picture or not, and making arrangements for that. Lighting, because you don't have any behind the camera spot, right? So if you're like in the Anderson situation, we were there in the daylight, and that made it, you have to consider where the sun is sometimes, because if it's right in line, or for example, had the sun been behind Anderson Hall at the time we took this photo, that would have caused a little bit of a sun glare, and that can pose a problem because you can't get out of that way. But that is also true of regular video. If the sun had been right behind Anderson Hall at that time, that would have been a problem for a regular video camera or photo also. So that isn't necessarily different, I don't think. If you're indoors, then you do have a little more challenge. Again, if you can do it in the daylight and there are windows, then that works out. If there's good lighting in the room and this camera can handle, then that also is okay. So, but if it's nighttime and there's darkness, then you want to light a particular scene. The lights it's difficult to hide the lights. Now, if, for example, you're in a very large building and there's a column, like in the library, we have columns in the middle of the big commons area, and you might be able to put a light bouncing up to the ceiling in that, in that direction from maybe behind two columns and bouncing up to the ceiling. You wouldn't, and then it'd be coming down. So you wouldn't necessarily see that the lights are on stands back there behind the columns, but then you would still get better light. I think the library is actually pretty well lit even at night though. So again, you might not require it. In low light situations where you need to add lighting, that can you do need to think creatively, maybe including how to make the light look like it's part of the scene instead of some videographer's special spotlight. Maybe it's something that you have to make it look like an actual floor lamp or something that's brought in. So there, yes, you do have to consider that. I haven't so far found it to be anything to stop me.
There's another question about, have you edited the panoramic videos in software? How much capability do you have in the video editing, and what software do you use?
All right, so this particular camera, the Insta1, comes with an app, and it can do some of the editing right there in the app, and then you export it. And it's pretty easy to learn to use the app. It's just like any other tool. Is like, oh, I want a filter, apply the filter. Oh, good, now export the filter. It has areas where you can adjust color, and say, okay, this is not supposed to be magenta. Let's back it off because it's a sunset, it's not that pink. And so those capabilities there, and the software all includes tutorials that are relatively short and painless. So that was not too bad. I was not a video editor before this. I used Camtasia, like TechSmith's Camtasia, in order to make demonstration videos for screens and things like that. But I didn't go out and shoot camera things too often. And so I was not much into Adobe Premiere software. So I would count myself as a newbie on Adobe Premiere when we first started doing this. And I've learned to, and that, honestly, that interface is like overwhelming sometimes, because there's like, I got all this stuff going on the screen. But lynda.com is got to be one of my favorite resources. They have so much goodness there for anybody that wants to spend some time watching, and YouTube, of course. But so either using the camera directly, in another case, we did go through and work with Premiere. One of the projects that I'm working on, and we won't see this until after sometime this summer, probably as part of the opening of the Sunderland Foundation Lab, Innovation Lab. I was able to go into the library before the pandemic made us all go away. And I went around with Mike Haddock, and we took the 360 camera, and at various, like every couple of weeks, we'd go in and see what's changed. And we take pictures with the 360 camera, and you can take those pictures and set them into a video and say, okay, this picture is going to be displayed for 10 seconds, and then we're going to show this other one. And the idea is that we'd be able to show what is happening over time in a 360 way. Like you saw the one photo I had of the great room with all the scaffolding inside it. And then, there'd be another photo with the scaffolding gone and so forth. So that we do have a break in that timeline of pictures because they wouldn't let us back in. My project was not essential. So they were like, no, we're going to keep you safe. Stay home. And so, but there are some things we can do, like the before and after, or the during and after. I don't have any 360 photos of the library before the disastrous fire, but I do have from the file footage in the library. We have photos in the reading room of various things that have happened in there over time, like in the 1950s, student being in the old Farrell section. And one of the things that we experimented with is how do I go into Photoshop and bend this flat photo so that it looks a little curved, and then I can go in and place it on top of the 360 photo in the right place so that it looks like it's part of the scene. And so we've been experimenting with that. That is definitely a more advanced feature. That is not something you're going to start doing week one. You could pretty quickly, if you have any Photoshop experience, you could pretty quickly put in a flat photo, which we did in several, and that was the first thing we did. It's just a matter, because in Photoshop, it's all a matter of layers, right? So, and for those that would be interested, it's also possible if you I learned an interesting technique after the fact, but somebody has a YouTube video out there that shows that if you can't get out of the picture, but you want to be out of the picture, stand on one side of the camera, take the picture, walk around to the other side of the camera and take the picture. And then in Photoshop, you can put them on the two pictures on top of each other and just erase you out of the top picture. There's an erase function, and then that lets the bottom photo show through, and it looks like you're not there. So that was a clever little edit. Now that I know that, I have much better ideas about how to make some of these other photo shots work. It would be pretty cool. So that was a lot of talking about editing. Did I get to what you were looking for?
I'm asking questions in the chat, so I
Yeah.
can't answer for the person who asked the question. So hopefully, if you didn't, they can ask some more on that. You started to mention Photoshop a little bit in there, and someone is asking about exporting process to keep the image functionality, and talked about in design school they often use Photoshop to visualize their designs. So is there more kind of guidance you can give us on using Photoshop for these images?
Yeah, in Photoshop, like when we first started working with it, trying to edit the photo, we found that the camera we were using was not part of the camera raw or the supported camera set yet. And so that kind of tripped us up, and we ended up importing, we imported the GoPro plugin, which the GoPro plugin handles a 360 photo. Now, and so that might always be an option in order to do that. Then the export, if it's Photoshop and is still being saved as an image file, but again, the key to viewing the 360 photo is that it needs to, you've got to have a viewer that can handle that. So like the Turn Me panorama on a PC, I think it's Photosphere on the iPad. Yes, Photosphere on the iPad. And that will allow you to view the 360 camera images. And if you're loading up a video onto YouTube and playing it back, YouTube player already knows how to handle a 360 video. So that's good. Now, MediaSite, our own internal one, and I'm not sure about that. I don't know that it's supporting 360. Maybe someone in IT in MediaSite would know better about that. If you can stream a 360 from the MediaSite. Yeah.
So you may have mentioned in there and I missed it, but someone is also wondering, can you get the 360 camera app on a desktop outside from just using your smartphone?
I believe that is true. I think I have the Insta360 app on my big desktop, not on the laptop. I'm looking. Yeah, I don't have it here. I think that we have it on the big desktop. I don't have it turned on right now. I would answer that question directly. But I have mostly been operating using either the phone or an iPad. And then there's a micro SD card inside the phone. And I can take the SD card out, put it in the adapter, and put it directly into the computer, through the reader, and just copy files like I would from any USB drive. The other way I work with, if it's an image I took on my phone, I tend to transfer the file using Bluetooth to my computer. And that took me a while to figure out because it's a handshake thing you have to set up each time and one photo at a time. It's very tedious. So I end up instead using a cable, a USB cable, like that. And I plug it into the phone and I let the phone act like a little hard drive, a little USB drive. And then I just use Windows Explorer and drag them across. And then that is also possible with the Insta360 One X camera. Insta360 One X. Yeah.
So someone else in the chat is wondering about the key benefits of using a 360 camera versus taking a 360 panorama on your cell.
Well, a 360 panorama is pretty decent, depending on the camera that you have. Your panorama is a viewport, typically a certain size, left to right. You're moving horizontally, and a 360 camera should be taking the ceiling and the floor also. So if you're outside and you don't care what the sky looks like, then that doesn't matter. But if you're inside a building, then it could matter. Yeah, alt texting a 360-degree image is that you really have to get into a really decent alternative format. I think I think accessibility of 360 is still being debated, just how to do it really well. Of course, you can do captioning just like you would anything else, but the challenge is if it's a visual disability, like if they can't see the film, then you really have to, in like a transcript or an audio track, describe very clearly what is in view. And that's how becomes challenging, because if you were concerned about what's behind you, again, we don't exactly know with most of the headsets where someone is looking. Now, HTC Vive headsets with an eye, I think the eye version actually has some eye movement scannability capabilities, which I have not played with. I've only heard about them. And then with that, it would be possible to know where a person is looking, and I'll text it that way.
So Alice, I have a different kind of question. So I'm wondering about it as a teacher. So I trust that these are these cameras, and they do these wonderful views, and they're very impressive, and I understand the logistics of making them work correctly. But why, as a teacher, would I think about doing this? So what are the educational advantages, the activities that I would do, the way to engage my students? Because I would love some ideas about that.
Okay. Well, one of the things in education sometimes we talk about is locus of control, and someone having perceived ability to control what is going on, or at least what they're looking and what's happening. That can be an enhancement to someone's motivation or interest in pursuing that, so that you can drag the view around and see things. It's very active. You're not just watching a video doing something and telling you something. You can choose where you're looking and how you're looking at it, and that creates a very engaging, active response kind of thing. And if they're doing it in a headset, believe me, they are looking around. That Salvador Dali painting that the Salvador Dali Museum made, where it's a 5-minute film or something, and you are floating through the Salvador Dali environment and looking around. And I've gone through that on the headset 2 or 3 times myself, because I'm always looking in some other different direction and seeing what I didn't see before. And so you could possibly find people who will be more interested in doing that sort of thing. The opportunity to zoom in on things that you are very curious about is very interesting. So, for example, Google partnered with the Palace of Versailles to do some 360 filming in areas of the palace, but also you get to be in places that you wouldn't be allowed to be in, and you can zoom in pretty tightly on things. I think the Louvre also has done this, and I saw recently another tool. Someone used Google Street View to map one of the floors inside the Guggenheim Museum. So that was very interesting too. If you have any interest, and that's another thing that we've talked about, but we went quickly past it. There's a difference between the making use of and making it. So if you're making use of, you may not be using the 360 camera, you may just be searching out videos that have been created already by someone else. And then you make the assignment on that and say, find all the things that are wrong in this pig pen, you know, what should be, what's wrong with the feeding area. I heard Grain Science was interested in going out and doing 360 cameras inside various kinds of silos, grain silos, so that they could show students what these things look like, which a flat photo can't really do for you. You can't look around in all those different ways and see the distinctions. You can do a compare and contrast assignment with that. If everybody in this room probably has engaged a compare and contrast assignment with some of their students at some time, and so that is something that's pretty easy to understand how you might approach it in making use of. The library has some film databases that are now including 360 videos and documentaries, so that's an opportunity too. One of the things that 360 film is still being researched in is the authenticity or the affective effect of being in an immersive environment. The New York Times was doing some experimental news reporting using 360 camera and going, like in places where, war-torn areas, and doing stories, with people and what is it like to be there or in poverty. There was one story that was done on some homeless areas, where people are just camping out on the streets in big cities, and going down that street with the camera, and when you put that on your headset and you're actually physically there in your own experience, it's the emotional side of that is kind of powerful, but I don't think that they've completed all their research in those areas. But that kind of an immersive experience is quite a bit different, I think, than just reading about so many people are living on the street.
I'm curious if anyone else in our audience has used cameras like this or panoramas in general to kind of enhance their classes, because I would love to hear some other examples and testimonials. And if you have something, you can just unmute and talk. You can drop it in the chat. I'll be happy to read it out to the rest of us. I'm not seeing those. I do see another question in the chat, so I'll ask that. But I'm going to turn my question around to the possibilities, and in just a second. So I'll give you a minute to think about that. So what possibilities do you see for using this in your class to kind of promote student learning and their success? But while you're thinking, another question for you, Alice, is: are there formal archives of 360-degree videos? Will K-State Libraries host one? And they're asking you to put on your librarian hat and ask.
Oh, yes. Right. So that is, we already have, I think it's Alexander Street has some 360 documentary photos or videos in their collection that they're experimenting with. So it's pretty early stages for that right now. And I don't know if the New York Times subscription has those linked in or not. That would be off the ProQuest platform. So that's something we'll have to look into. We know that they're coming, and we want to be alert to those sorts of things, like what is useful to people. Anytime people want to go out and show something, that's when you might think about using a 360. Like if you're in geology and you want to go out and you want people to see the layers in the soil, in the cutaway, having a 360 of that, especially if it's a good camera and you have good pixels, that can be very useful, because especially if a student gets the opportunity to put it on a VR headset, if you're looking on the screen, those layers are all going to be within what's the screen height? 12 inches. So it might be a 25-foot tall cutaway, but you're still going to see it in 12 inches. And so that the distinction in your perception just can't be the same. So there's a possibility. Yeah, Alexandra Street. I'm going to have to add to my LibGuide all the places where we know there's a 360 thing. Another thing, if you're in history, what if there was a battle somewhere? Like I used to live very near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And I remember being in person where they were doing like a little demonstration of what it's like to face a bayonet charge. And I tell you that, those reenactments is like, I've heard of it. I'm like, yeah, well, the guides actually got clever because they realized that, so they had lined us up along with the bridge, the big stone bridge behind us. And then they had the bayonet charge do their thing. And we were all like, we couldn't back up, but I was like, oh no. And so I dropped down quick, as I was a teenager. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be stabbed. It was very real being there versus watching a film, like a Tim Burns film of that. If you got a demonstration of something like that, that would be very, very clear. And just getting a sense of the height and distances that were covered, little round top is not that little. It's not huge, but it's much bigger than the name implies. So that's another area where being able to see it in an immersive way to get a sense of the scope or the space is very useful.
So Wendy Mathers actually has a wonderful comment in the chat. She says she's thinking of using this for the cultural portion of special programs where normally they bring in small groups of international people to campus who must now be remote. And also in terms of recruitment of international students, this could be great.
Oh, yeah.
So I really like the creativity there, the kind of ability to immerse someone in an environment they wouldn't necessarily get to see. So I love that degree of creativity. Mm-hmm. Are there other ideas that people have for kind of the use of this technology to promote our students' experiences and learning?
I see.
Brandon. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm thinking there have been a few times where I've been able to travel with students on kind of like case competitions, and we visited different operations and manufacturing facilities. And so I usually am there like taking pictures of different things, and occasionally I'll bring it back into class and kind of point out things where this could be, single camera, more online. You said you have the locus of control to be able to look at different things and then use that information icon to be able to further explain key features of, this particular structure or this particular tool or machinery. That would be pretty interesting.
Oh, yes, definitely would be. I find that there's more and more 360 opportunities out there that you can pull from. I just search Google from time to time, 360 film or 360 video. And I like I can't find it anymore. I don't know what search I used a year ago when I was experiencing it for the first time. I was using the headset, and there was some 4-H show going on, and they had the piglets and the sow in there, and the camera was on the ground, and I was looking at the little piglets. That was cool. It was like eye level with the piglets, and then out of the right hand corner came this other 400-pound sow into view, and I looked up just in time for it to sit on the camera. So it was like having this giant pig sit on my face. So it was like that. Those are very interesting experiences. But you never know what you're going to find out there. It's I'm really looking forward to some of the fun things that we're going to be doing here in the near future. I don't know if anybody's interested. I do have like a little floor plan of the first floor that I could share on the screen. Let's see, how do I got to share screen again. This is just the first floor. When you come in, you'll come down a hall here from the main commons, but there's glass all through here, and you come in areas where you can collaborate. And this is a big demonstration of 55-inch screens called Liquid Galaxy. This is the media lab where you can be working with Adobe Cloud and all that. And then in here, this is a VR room where you have headsets and also projectors for 3 walls. So whatever you're doing could be also shown out here, which would be very interesting stuff. Other things that are useful in regards to 360 video, if you need to record some, we're gonna have a really great quality sound booth here in this room. And out here, this is a 1-button studio for you. Just no, this is not 360, but you can go in, put in a USB into the machine, a USB drive into the machine, push the button, and start recording yourself video wise and doing, demonstration, whatever you're doing. And then when you're done, you push stop, pull your USB drive out, take it home, and there you go, you're done. This is a more advanced video room. There's a control room out here with machines and there's special lighting in here and curved walls on this side to let people go in and do some very interesting things that way. So that's in the nutshell version. Oh, then over here, the non-tech makerspace that has to do with tools like hammers and soldering equipment and Raspberry Pis and things like that. But this is just the first floor, and all of these things definitely would pertain to the 360 efforts if you want to get into more advanced things like, yes, I want to edit my videos, I want to do all kinds of fun things with that. It'll be there. Then workshops are being developed, and I expect there'll be grand stuff coming out.
So Eva Horn thinks that it'd be great if you could help her visualize the inside of a cell with this technology. That would be amazing and very helpful for her biology classes.
Oh, yes, it would. Actually, I think there may be some. Now that's not necessarily something you would shoot with a 360 camera, because we don't have 360 cameras that are that small. But that would be a very interesting application of virtual reality, whether that was developed as an animation or more three-dimensional thing. Just this week, I watched a webinar on return on investment of virtual reality training, and they had a 360 camera in the position of what would be the student view. They had a patient on the table, and they had a camera above the patient, and they had the ability to select from a menu to project onto the patient the various organs and where they would be. And they had the trainer on the other side, and they had an additional screen built in to show what would be on ultrasound. I think it was Vanderbilt that had this created. So it was really quite interesting. Yeah. Second Life, that maybe you could build a cell environment in Second Life. Oh, that'd be fun.
So we are about out of time. I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for sharing this technology with us, making available at Hale Library for sign out, and offering in-person workshops when we have that capability again. So please join me in thanking Alice for her wonderful presentation today.
Thanks for having me. It was really fun to talk about. Yeah.
Next week, Colby Morberg is going to be talking about course readings and information source credibility, increasing student familiarity with university extension and government publications. I'm very excited for that. And to give a kind of a promo for the one from 2 weeks from now, Ellie Sayer is going to be talking about undergraduate mentoring. It's a topic we haven't taken on in this professional development series really so far, although she makes the very good point that mentoring and teaching are very closely related. So we're really excited for that one. We'll have our title formalized for that event coming up in 2 weeks. So thank you so much again for spending some time with us on your Wednesday afternoon, and I hope the rest of your week goes well. Thank you so much.
Bye.